Virgin was the Mafia boss's maid until he found out the baby she hid was his. Part 1. The crystal vase shattered against the marble floor 3 inches from Vera Mitchell's left foot. She didn't flinch. 6 months working as a live-in maid for Chicago's most notorious, alleged crime boss had taught her that flinching only made things worse. Instead, she kept her eyes down, her grip steady on the silver.
If you're enjoying the story so far, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow and lets me keep bringing you more amazing love stories. Alright, back to the story.
Tray she was carrying and counted silently to 10, while Dominic Russo screamed at someone on his phone in rapid Italian. Uno, due, tre. The Italian curses were particularly creative today. Quattro, cinque, sei. Something about someone's mother and a very anatomically improbable suggestion. Setic, otto, nove. A chair scraped violently across the floor. Dici. Silence. Vera risked a glance up. Dominic stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office, phone still pressed to his ear, his broad shoulders tense beneath his tailored black suit. Even furious, he was unfairly attractive. All sharp jawline, dark eyes, and the kind of controlled danger that should have repelled her but somehow didn't. Which was a problem. A big problem. The kind of problem currently growing in her belly, hidden beneath the shapeless black maid's uniform she'd deliberately chosen 2 sizes too large. Are you going to stand there all day? Or are you going to clean up the mess? Dominic's voice cut through her thoughts, smooth as whiskey and twice as dangerous. He'd switched to English. He always switched to English for her. Right away, Mr. Russo. Vera set down the tray, afternoon espresso, precisely how he liked it, and retrieved the small handheld vacuum from the supply closet. She knelt carefully, mindful of the slight swell of her stomach, and began collecting the larger glass shards by hand first. Not with your hands. Dominic's voice was closer now. You'll cut yourself. I'm fine, Mr. Russo. Vera. His tone held a warning. She looked up to find him standing directly above her, his dark eyes fixed on her face with that unsettling intensity that always made her feel like he could see straight through her carefully constructed walls. I'm fine, she repeated, softer this time. I've cleaned up worse. It was true. In the 6 months she'd worked here, she'd cleaned up broken furniture, blood, never asked questions, and once, inexplicably, an entire birthday cake that had been thrown at a wall. The Russo penthouse was chaos wrapped in Italian marble and million-dollar artwork. Dominic studied her for another moment, then reached down and plucked the glass shard from her hand. His fingers brushed hers warm, calloused despite the expensive suits, and Vera felt that familiar flutter in her chest that she absolutely could not afford to feel. Not for him. Not for anyone. Use the vacuum, he said, his voice gentler now. That's what it's for. He walked away before she could respond, returning to his desk and the endless stack of papers that definitely weren't related to his legitimate importing business. Vera finished cleaning in silence, hyper-aware of his presence 10 feet away. She could feel his eyes on her occasionally, that assessing gaze that made her wonder what he saw. A mousy 24-year-old maid, with brown hair always pulled into a severe bun, or the terrified young woman who was 3 months pregnant with his child and desperately trying to figure out how to disappear before he found out. She carried the broken glass to the trash, set the vacuum back in the closet, and was halfway to the door when his voice stopped her. Vera. She turned. Yes, Mr. Russo. You've been here 6 months. Her heart stuttered. Yes, sir. You're a good worker. Quiet. Efficient. Don't ask questions. He leaned back in his chair, studying her with those dark, unreadable eyes. Why? I don't understand the question. Why work here? Why take a position in the home of a man with my reputation? The corner of his mouth quirked. Most people run from the Rosso name. You walked straight into it. Because I was desperate. Because I had $50 and nowhere to sleep. Because your housekeeper found me crying in a coffee shop and offered me a job without asking too many questions. Because 7 months ago, I made the catastrophic mistake of going to a masquerade charity gala with my former roommate, drinking too much champagne, and sleeping with a mysterious stranger in a designer suit who disappeared before I woke up. Because 3 months ago, I realized that mysterious stranger and my new employer were the same person. And because he clearly didn't remember me at all. I needed the work, Vera said simply. You pay well. You don't ask about my past. That's all I need. It wasn't a lie. It just wasn't the whole truth. Dominic nodded slowly. Fair enough. But, Vera? Yes? If you're in trouble, if someone's looking for you, if you're hiding from something, I can help. That's what I do. I protect the people under my roof. The offer was genuine. She could hear it in his voice, which made everything so much worse. Because how could she tell him that the thing she was hiding from was him? That the moment he found out about the baby, everything would change? That a man like Dominic Russo, powerful, controlled, dangerous, would never just let her walk away with his child? I'm not in trouble, Vera lied. But thank you for the offer, Mr. Russo. She escaped before he could ask any more questions. CTA Dunwan, have you ever had to keep a massive secret from someone you saw every day? How did you handle it? Drop your stories in the comments. I'd love to hear them. Back in the safety of her small bedroom on the 3rd floor, servants' quarters, compact but comfortable, Vera finally let herself breathe. She locked the door, pulled off the oversized uniform, and stood in front of the full-length mirror in just her underwear and tank top. The bump was undeniable now. Small but there. A gentle swell that she could no longer blame on bloating or too much pasta. 14 weeks pregnant. 14 weeks of morning sickness hidden behind closed bathroom doors. 14 weeks of panicking every time Dominic looked at her for too long. 14 weeks of trying to save enough money to disappear before anyone noticed. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, a text from Rosa, the housekeeper who'd hired her. Rosa, Mija, you look tired. You eating enough? I made extra lasagna. Come to kitchen. Rosa was 65, warm, perceptive, and entirely too observant. She'd been with the Russo family for 30 years and ran the household staff with equal parts affection and iron discipline. She was also the only person in this house who looked at Vera like she mattered. Vera, thank you. I'll be down in 10 minutes. She pulled the uniform back on, checking her reflection to make sure nothing showed. The loose fabric did its job, making her look shapeless and unremarkable. Invisible. That was the goal. Stay invisible until she had enough money saved. Then disappear to another city, another state. Somewhere Dominic Russo's influence didn't reach. She'd almost convinced herself it would work. The kitchen was warm and fragrant, filled with the scent of Rosa's cooking. The older woman took one look at Vera, and immediately began heaping food onto a plate. You're too thin, Rosa declared in her heavy Italian accent. Mr. Dominic works you too hard. Sit, eat. I'm fine, Rosa. Sit. Vera sat. Rosa placed the plate in front of her, enough lasagna to feed 3 people, and settled into the chair across from her with a knowing look. So, Rosa said casually, when are you going to tell him? Vera's fork clattered against the plate. Tell who what? Don't play games with me, Bambina. I've raised 5 children and helped with 12 grandchildren. I know a pregnant woman when I see one. Rosa's expression was gentle. How far along? Vera's hand shook. Rosa, please. I won't tell anyone. That's your choice to make. Rosa reached across the table and squeezed her hand. But hiding it won't work forever. And Mr. Dominic, he's a good man, despite what people say. He would help you. You don't understand. Vera's voice broke. He can't know. He can never know. Why not? Because 7 months ago, at a masquerade gala, I danced with a stranger. We talked for hours. He made me laugh, made me feel seen, made me feel beautiful. And when he led me to a private room and kissed me like I was precious, I didn't think about consequences. I just felt alive for the first time since my world fell apart. I didn't know who he was. He didn't know who I was. It was supposed to be one perfect night with no complications. Except now I'm living in his house, cleaning his office, and carrying his child. And he looks at me every day without the slightest flicker of recognition. Because it's complicated, Vera whispered. Rosa studied her for a long moment. The father, does he know? No. Will you tell him? I can't. Can't or won't. Both. Vera forced herself to take a bite of lasagna even though her stomach was in knots. Rosa, I just need a few more weeks. I'm saving money. I'll find somewhere else to go. Somewhere safe. And then you'll raise a baby alone, with no support, in a city where you know no one. Rosa's voice was sharp. That's not a plan, Mija. That's survival. And babies need more than survival. I know that. Vera's eyes burned with unshed tears. But I don't have another choice. There are always choices. Not for me. Not with. She stopped herself before she said too much. Rosa sighed. Eat your lasagna. We'll figure something out. But as Vera mechanically ate the food she could barely taste, she wondered if there was anything to figure out. Because in 3 months, maybe less, her secret would be impossible to hide. And when Dominic Russo discovered that his invisible maid was carrying his child, everything would shatter, just like that crystal vase. That night, Vera lay in her narrow bed, one hand resting on the small swell of her stomach, and whispered to the tiny life growing inside her. I'll figure this out, she promised. I'll keep you safe. I'll keep us both safe. Even if she had no idea how. Even if the father of her child was sleeping 3 floors below her, powerful, dangerous, and completely unaware that his world was about to change forever. Dominic Russo had 3 rules for running a successful criminal empire. Allegedly, of course. His lawyers were very insistent on the allegedly. Rule 1, trust no one completely. Rule 2, control the narrative before it controls you. Rule 3, never, under any circumstances, get emotionally involved with employees. He'd broken Rule 3 exactly once in his 32 years. 7 months ago, at a masquerade charity gala he'd been obligated to attend, he'd met a woman in a silver dress and Venetian mask who'd made him forget every rule he'd ever made. They'd talked for hours, danced, laughed. She'd been sharp and funny and real in a way that no one in his world ever was. When she'd looked at him, she hadn't seen the Russo name or the reputation or the power. She'd just seen him. He'd kissed her in a private alcove, and she'd kissed him back like she was drowning and he was air. They'd ended up in one of the hotel's empty conference rooms. Not his smoothest moment, but neither of them had been thinking clearly. It had been urgent and desperate and achingly tender all at once. And when he'd woken up 3 hours later, she was gone. No name, no number, no trace except the faint scent of her perfume on his shirt and a silver mask left on the table. He'd spent 2 months trying to find her, had called in every favor, employed every resource, checked every guest list. Nothing. She'd vanished like smoke. Eventually he'd forced himself to stop looking. But he'd never forgotten her. Which was why on this particular November morning, Dominic stood in his office nursing his 3rd espresso, and wondering why his quiet, efficient maid kept triggering the strangest sense of déjà vu. Vera Mitchell had worked for him for 6 months. She was competent, professional, and almost aggressively unremarkable. Brown hair always pulled into a severe bun, shapeless uniforms that made her look like she was drowning in fabric, eyes that stayed downcast except for brief, necessary glances. She was exactly the kind of employee he preferred. Invisible, efficient, no drama. So why did he keep noticing her? Why did the curve of her neck when she bent to clean something make his breath catch? Why did her voice, soft and careful, sound almost familiar? You're being ridiculous, he muttered to himself, downing the rest of his espresso. A knock interrupted his thoughts. Come in, he called. His younger brother, Marco, sauntered in with the kind of cocky grin that usually preceded terrible news. We have a problem, Marco announced, dropping into the leather chair across from Dominic's desk. We always have a problem, be specific. The Valentino family is sniffing around our South Side operations. They're claiming we've encroached on their territory. Marco helped himself to the espresso Vera had left on the tray, the one meant for Dominic. Also, the new shipment's been delayed. Again. Dominic pinched the bridge of his nose. How delayed? 3 weeks, maybe 4. That's unacceptable. We have buyers waiting. I know. I'm handling it. Marco studied him with dark eyes identical to Dominic's own. You look like hell, by the way. When's the last time you slept? I sleep. When? Because I was here until 2 a.m. and you were still working. And I know you were back at your desk by 6. I had things to review. You always have things to review. You're going to burn out, Dom. I'm fine. Marco snorted. Sure. And I'm the Pope. He paused. Speaking of popes, Nana called. She wants to know when you're coming to Sunday dinner. She's threatening to storm the penthouse if you skip again. Their grandmother, Lucia Russo, was 4 feet 11 inches of pure Italian fury wrapped in floral dresses and armed with a wooden spoon. She was possibly the only person in Chicago that Dominic was genuinely afraid of. Tell her I'll be there this Sunday. You said that last week, and the week before. This week, I mean it. Marco gave him a skeptical look but didn't push. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, studying the penthouse office with the casual interest of someone who'd grown up in this world. You ever think about getting out? Marco asked suddenly. Out of what? This. The business. The whole, he gestured vaguely, empire of questionable legality thing. Dominic stared at his brother. Where is this coming from? I don't know, I've just been thinking lately. We have enough legitimate businesses to walk away from the other stuff. Import-export, real estate, the restaurants. We could go clean and let the Valentinos and the Maratis and every other family in Chicago tear apart what our father built. Dad's been dead for 5 years. Dom, maybe it's time to build something different. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Their father, Antonio Russo, had been old-school mafia to his core, violent, ruthless, and utterly unwilling to adapt to changing times. When he'd died of a heart attack, Dominic had inherited an empire on the verge of collapse and spent 5 years dragging it into the 21st century. Less violence, more strategy, legitimate businesses to launder money through, lawyers instead of enforcers whenever possible, but still criminal, still dangerous, still a world where mistakes got people killed. I'll think about it, Dominic said, which was more than he'd ever admitted before. Marco looked surprised but pleased. Good. Because I'd really like to make it to 40 without getting shot. You're 28. Exactly. Lots of time to get shot between now and 40. Despite everything, Dominic smiled. Get out of my office and handle the Valentino situation before it becomes a bigger problem. On it, boss. Marco stood, then hesitated at the door. Hey, Dom. Yeah. The new maid, Vera, she okay? Dominic's attention sharpened. Why? I don't know. She seems nervous, jumpy. Rosa mentioned she's been looking tired lately. Marco shrugged. Just wondering if everything's all right with her. As far as I know. Why do you ask? No reason, just we employ a lot of people, but not many of them live here. Feels like we should make sure they're okay, you know? After Marco left, Dominic found himself thinking about Vera again. She did seem tired lately, and there was something in her eyes sometimes, a flash of fear or worry that disappeared as soon as he tried to focus on it. Was she in trouble? Running from something? He made a mental note to have his head of security run a deeper background check. Not because he didn't trust her. She'd been thoroughly vetted before being hired. But because if someone under his roof was in danger, he needed to know about it. It was just good business. That's what he told himself. Anyway, it had nothing to do with the way her hands had trembled slightly when he'd taken the glass shard from her fingers yesterday. Nothing to do with the protective instinct that flared whenever he saw her shoulders tense. Nothing at all. VTA Gen 2, have you ever noticed someone struggling but didn't know how to help? What did you do? Share your thoughts below. Vera's daily routine was carefully orchestrated to minimize interactions with Dominic Russo. 6 a.m., wake up, shower, dress in the largest uniform available. 6:30 a.m., light breakfast in the kitchen with Rosa, who was always awake at ungodly hours. 7 a.m., clean the third floor guest rooms currently empty. 9 a.m., clean the second floor common areas, library, sitting rooms, formal dining room that was never used. 11 a.m., lunch break in her room, away from everyone. 12 p.m., laundry and general housekeeping tasks. 3 p.m., clean Dominic's office. He was usually in meetings. 5 p.m., dinner prep assistance for Rosa, if needed. 6 p.m., retreat to her room for the evening. The schedule worked beautifully, minimal overlap with Dominic, maximum invisibility. Until the schedule imploded on a Wednesday afternoon. Vera entered Dominic's office at precisely 3 p.m., armed with cleaning supplies and the reasonable expectation that he'd be in his usual Wednesday meeting with his accountants. Instead, she found him at his desk, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, looking at his computer screen with an expression of deep frustration. Oh, Vera froze in the doorway. I'm sorry, Mr. Russo. I thought you'd be in your meeting. I can come back. No, it's fine. The meeting was canceled. He didn't look up from his screen. Come in. I'll stay out of your way. Vera hesitated, every instinct screaming at her to leave. But leaving would be unusual, suspicious, the kind of behavior that drew attention. So she entered the office and began her usual cleaning routine, hyper-aware of Dominic's presence 10 feet away. She dusted the bookshelves, emptied the trash, straightened the magazines on the coffee table by the leather sofa, and then, because her pregnancy brain was apparently determined to ruin her life, she bent down to pick up a fallen paper and immediately felt dizzy. The room tilted. She grabbed the edge of the coffee table, breathing carefully through her nose. Not now. Please, not now. Vera? Dominic's voice came from directly behind her. When had he moved? And she straightened too quickly, which made the dizziness worse. I'm fine, she said automatically. Just stood up too fast. Her knees buckled. Strong hands caught her before she hit the ground. And suddenly she was being lifted. Actually lifted. Like she weighed nothing. And carried to the leather sofa. Sit, Dominic ordered, lowering her carefully. Head between your knees. Mr. Russo, I'm really head between knees. His voice had that tone, the one he used when he expected to be obeyed without question. The one that probably terrified his enemies and made his employees jump to attention. Vera put her head between her knees. Dominic disappeared and returned 30 seconds later with a glass of water and what looked like a protein bar. Drink, he said, pressing the glass into her hands. And eat this. When did you last eat? Lunch. I had lunch. Technically true. She'd had 3 crackers and some ginger tea because her morning sickness had decided to make a very unwelcome afternoon appearance. That's not lunch. That's a snack. He sat down beside her, not close enough to be inappropriate, but close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from him. Vera, are you sick? No. Are you eating properly? Yes. Are you lying to me? She risked a glance at him. His dark eyes were fixed on her face, sharp with concern and something else she couldn't quite identify. I'm fine, Mr. Russo. Just a little dizzy spell. It happens sometimes. It shouldn't happen. His jaw tightened. You're working too hard. I'm reducing your hours. What? No? You just nearly fainted in my office. Your hours are being reduced. That's final. Panic clawed at Vera's throat. Reduced hours meant reduced pay. Reduced pay meant it would take longer to save enough money to disappear. Longer to execute her escape plan. Mr. Russo, please. I need the work. I need the money. I'm not reducing your pay, he interrupted, reading her panic correctly. Just your hours. You'll work 6-hour days instead of 10. Same salary. Vera blinked. That doesn't make sense. Why would you? Because you're clearly exhausted and I'm not in the habit of working my employees into the ground. His voice softened slightly. Vera, you're valuable. You do good work. But I need you healthy, not collapsing in my office. The kindness in his voice was almost worse than if he'd been angry, because it reminded her of the man at the gala, the one who'd held her like she was precious, who'd whispered sweet things in Italian that she hadn't understood, but had felt all the way to her soul. The man she'd spent one perfect night with before reality crashed back in. Thank you, she whispered. That's very generous. It's practical. He stood, putting distance between them. Finish your water, take the rest of the day off. Rosa will make sure you eat a proper dinner. Mr. Russo. Dominic. She looked up, startled. What? When we're alone you can call me Dominic. He ran a hand through his dark hair, looking almost uncomfortable. We live in the same house. The formality feels excessive. It was a terrible idea. A catastrophically bad idea. Because every time she heard his name, she remembered moaning it in a dark room 7 months ago. I don't think that's appropriate, Vera said carefully. Why not? Rosa calls me Dominic. Marco does. Hell, half the people who work for me do. Their family or business associates. You're part of this household. That makes you under my protection. His voice was firm. And people under my protection are allowed to use my first name. Vera wanted to argue, wanted to maintain every possible barrier between them. But she was also exhausted and dizzy and terrified, and the stubborn set of his jaw told her this was a battle she wouldn't win. Okay, she said quietly. Dominic. Something flickered in his eyes when she said his name. Recognition? No, that was impossible. He'd never recognized her in 6 months. He wasn't going to start now. Good. He picked up his phone. I'm calling Rosa. She'll bring dinner to your room tonight. That's not necessary. Vera. He looked at her. Really looked at her. And for one terrifying moment she was sure he could see everything. The secret. The fear. The baby. Let someone take care of you. Just this once. Her throat tightened with unshed tears. Because she wanted to. God, she wanted to let someone help. Let someone share the crushing weight of trying to survive alone. But she couldn't. Not when that someone was the one person who could never know the truth. Thank you, she whispered. Dominic nodded and turned away to make the call, giving her privacy to collect herself. Vera stood on shaky legs, grabbed her cleaning supplies and retreated to her room before she did something catastrophically stupid. Like telling him everything. Like falling apart in his arms. Like admitting that the baby she was hiding was his. That evening Rosa appeared with enough food to feed a small army and a knowing look that made Vera deeply uncomfortable. Mr. Dominic is worried about you, Rosa said, setting down the tray. He asked me to make sure you eat everything. Rosa, this is too much. Edie. Rosa sat down on the edge of the bed, her expression gentle. Bambina, you can't keep doing this. You can't keep hiding and pretending everything's fine. I'm not. You almost fainted today. That's not fine. That's your body telling you something's wrong. Rosa took her hand. Please, let me help you. Let Mr. Dominic help you. He's a good man. He's a criminal, Vera said flatly. Allegedly. Rosa's mouth twitched. And yes, he operates in a world that's not always legal. But he's also the man who paid for my grandson's cancer treatment when I couldn't afford it, who gave Marco's friend a job when no one else would hire him because of his record, who takes care of the people loyal to him. That doesn't change what he is. No, but it means he's not just what he is. Rosa squeezed her hand. The father of your baby, is he a good man? Goof. Farah's breath caught. I don't know, she admitted. I thought so. For one night I really thought so, but I don't actually know him. Then, maybe it's time to find out. Rosa left her with that cryptic statement, and enough pasta to feed 3 people. Vera ate mechanically, one hand resting on her small bump, and tried not to think about the impossible situation she'd created. But as she lay in bed that night, she couldn't stop replaying the moment when Dominic had caught her. The strength of his arms, the genuine concern in his voice, the way he'd looked at her like she mattered. And deep in her chest, a treacherous part of her heart whispered, what if Rosa's right? What if he would help? But that same part of her heart had trusted once before, had believed a man could want her for who she was, not what she could give him. And she'd woken up alone, pregnant, and more terrified than she'd ever been in her life. She couldn't risk that again. Wouldn't risk her baby's safety on the chance that a mafia boss might have a hidden heart of gold. Even if every interaction with Dominic Russo made her wonder if maybe, just maybe, the man from the gala was still in there somewhere, waiting to be found again. The charity gala invitation arrived on a Tuesday morning, delivered by courier in a cream-colored envelope with gold embossing. Vera found it on the kitchen counter while preparing Dominic's breakfast espresso. Perfectly steamed, whole-grain toast, lightly buttered, fresh fruit arranged precisely how he preferred. Rosa was already reading it, her eyebrows raised. Well, the older woman said, this is interesting. What is? Vera asked, carefully plating the fruit. Mr. Dominic is hosting a charity event here, at the Penthouse, this Saturday. Rosa handed her the invitation. Annual fundraiser for the Children's Hospital. Very prestigious. Very, she paused meaningfully. Very hands-on for the staff. Vera's stomach dropped as she read the details. The Russo Foundation cordially invites you to the annual masquerade gala. Masquerade. The word hit her like a physical blow. No, she whispered. What was that, Mija? Nothing. I just Vera set down the invitation with shaking hands. A gala here? How many people? Usually about 200. Donors, business associates, city officials. Rosa began pulling out her planning notebook. We'll need extra staff, caterers, security, and Mr. Dominic will want everything perfect. 200 people. In the Penthouse, including presumably many of the same guests who'd attended the gala 7 months ago. The gala where Vera had worn a borrowed designer gown and a silver mask. The gala where she'd danced with a handsome stranger and made the decision that had changed her entire life. What if someone recognized her? What if Dominic somehow made the connection? Vera, you've gone very pale. Rosa's hand was on her shoulder. Are you all right? I'm fine, just overwhelmed. That's a lot of work for Saturday. Which is why you're going to rest today. Doctor's orders. I don't need. When was your last checkup? Rosa asked pointedly. Vera hesitated. I haven't exactly seen a doctor yet. Rosa's expression shifted from concern to horrified. 15 weeks pregnant and no prenatal care? Absolutely not. You're going to the clinic today. I'm calling my daughter-in-law. She's an OB-GYN. She'll see you this afternoon. No questions asked. Rosa, I can't afford. Family discount. Actually, free discount. Maria owes me for babysitting her twins every weekend. Rosa was already pulling out her phone. No arguments. You're going. Before Vera could protest further, Dominic walked into the kitchen. He was wearing dark slacks and a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, hair still slightly damp from his morning shower. He looked unfairly good for 7 a.m., and Vera hated that she noticed. Good morning, Mr. Russo, both women said in unison. Dominic's gaze lingered on Vera for a moment, that assessing look that always made her nervous, before shifting to Rosa. The gala invitations went out? He asked. Just received ours this morning, Rosa confirmed. We'll have everything ready. Good. I want this year to be exceptional. We're trying to raise $2 million for the new pediatric wing. He accepted the espresso Vera handed him, his fingers brushing hers briefly. Thank you, Vera. She nodded, not trusting her voice. Also, Dominic continued, I'll need the staff to be visible during the event. Serving drinks, managing coats, that sort of thing. But I want everyone in formal attire, not uniforms. We're projecting elegance, not servitude. Vera's heart stopped. Formal attire, sir. Yes, black tie for the men, cocktail dresses for the women. I'll cover the cost. Consider it a work expense. Rosa, take Vera shopping this week. Make sure she has something appropriate. Of course, Mr. Dominic. He was already walking toward his office, coffee in hand, completely unaware that he'd just destroyed Vera's entire plan to stay invisible during the gala. A cocktail dress, formal attire, visible to 200 guests, including potentially people who'd seen her 7 months ago. Rosa waited until Dominic's office door closed before turning to Vera with concerned eyes. Breathe, Mija. You're hyperventilating. I can't do this, Vera whispered. I can't work the gala. I can't be visible. I can't. Why not? What aren't you telling me? Vera looked at the older woman, kind, perceptive, trustworthy Rosa, and made a split-second decision. The masquerade gala 7 months ago, she said quietly. I was there. As a guest. Rosa's eyes widened. You were. I didn't know whose house it was. My roommate got us tickets. I wore a mask. I danced with it. She couldn't finish the sentence. But Rosa, sharp as ever, connected the dots. Oh, Bambina, she breathed. Mr. Dominic? Vera nodded miserably. He doesn't know it was you? He never saw my face. Not really. The masks, the lighting, the champagne. It was all very, she gestured helplessly, anonymous, intentionally anonymous. And when I woke up the next morning, he was already gone. Rosa sat down heavily. And now you're working in his house, pregnant with his child, and he has no idea. Now you understand why I can't work the gala. If someone recognizes me, if anyone makes a connection, they won't, Rosa said firmly. You look completely different now. The severe bun, the shapeless clothes, no makeup. Trust me, Mija, you're practically invisible compared to how you must have looked that night. But the dress will also be different. We'll find something modest, professional. You'll blend in with the other staff. Rosa squeezed her hand. But Vera, you can't run forever. Eventually, Mr. Dominic will find out about the baby. What will you do then? I don't know, Vera admitted. But I'm not ready for that conversation. Not yet. That afternoon, Rosa drove Vera to a small medical clinic in a quiet neighborhood. Dr. Maria Castillo was a warm woman in her 40s, with Rosa's same kind eyes and no-nonsense attitude. She ushered Vera into an exam room without asking uncomfortable questions about the father or Vera's situation. Let's see how baby is doing, Maria said, squeezing gel onto Vera's exposed belly. The ultrasound machine hummed to life, and then, there it was. A rapid, fluttering heartbeat. A tiny form on the screen, so much bigger than Vera had imagined. Strong heartbeat, Maria said, smiling. Everything looks healthy. You're measuring right at 15 weeks. Do you want to know the sex? Vera couldn't speak. She was staring at the screen, at the tiny life that was half her, half Dominic. A baby they'd created in one perfect, reckless night. Not yet, she finally managed. I'm not ready. That's fine. You have time. Maria printed several ultrasound photos and handed them to Vera. But, Vera, you need to start planning. Prenatal vitamins, regular checkups, thinking about where you'll deliver, and ideally informing the father. I know. Do you? Maria's tone was gentle but firm, because raising a baby alone is incredibly difficult. If the father is a good man, if he would step up, you owe it to yourself and the baby to give him that chance. Vera looked down at the ultrasound photo, the tiny profile, the little hands. What if telling him ruins everything? She whispered. What if not telling him ruins more? That evening, Vera sat in her room staring at the ultrasound photos. She'd hidden them in a book, Pride and Prejudice, a worn paperback she'd read 100 times. The irony wasn't lost on her. Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy had overcome pride and prejudice to find love. Vera was just trying to survive. A knock on her door made her jump. Vera? It's me, Rose's voice. She opened the door to find the housekeeper holding a large shopping bag. I did some preliminary shopping, Rosa said, entering and closing the door behind her. For the gala, I want you to try these on. See what works. She pulled out 3 cocktail dresses, all elegant, all professional, all strategically designed to not draw attention. The first was navy blue, high-necked, with long sleeves. Very conservative. The second was charcoal gray, slightly more form-fitting but still modest. The third was black, simple, with a subtle empire waist that would hide the small baby bump. Try the black one first, Rosa suggested. Vera changed in the bathroom, grateful for the dress's forgiving cut. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. The woman staring back looked elegant, professional. Nothing like the girl in the silver mask who danced with Dominic 7 months ago. Perfect, Rosa declared when Vera emerged. You look beautiful but understated. Exactly what we need. I look like a different person. That's the idea. Rosa adjusted the dress slightly. Now let's talk about hair and makeup. Or rather, minimal hair and minimal makeup. We want you forgettable, yes? Definitely yes. They spent the next hour planning Vera's invisible appearance for the gala. Hair in a low bun, minimal makeup, sensible shoes. Everything designed to help her blend into the background. You'll be fine, Rosa assured her. Just stay in the kitchen mostly. Pass out drinks occasionally. Avoid direct conversation with guests. Mr. Dominic will be too busy with donors to pay attention to the staff. Vera wanted to believe her, but something in her gut said this gala was going to change everything. The next 3 days passed in a blur of preparations. The penthouse transformed into an elegant event space. Caterers arrived with elaborate equipment. Florists delivered hundreds of white roses. A small orchestra set up in the corner of the main ballroom. Vera watched it all with growing dread. She'd been here before, 7 months ago, in this exact space. She remembered the music, the laughter, the champagne. She remembered catching sight of a tall man across the room, handsome, magnetic, watching her with dark, intense eyes. She remembered the way her heart had stuttered when he'd approached. Dance with me. I don't even know your name. Good. Let's keep it that way. Just for tonight. It had felt like a fairy tale. Anonymous. Perfect. Safe. Until it wasn't. Vera, Rosa's voice snapped her back to the present. Stop daydreaming. We need to set up the coat check area. Vera threw herself into work, trying to outrun her memories. Saturday arrived too quickly. By 6 p.m. the penthouse was transformed. Candlelight flickered from every surface. The orchestra warmed up with soft classical music. Guests would arrive at 7 p.m. Vera stood in her small bathroom, staring at her reflection in the black cocktail dress. She looked nothing like the girl from 7 months ago. That girl had worn a silver gown that sparkled under the lights. Her hair had been styled in soft waves. Her makeup had been dramatic, smoky eyes, red lips. This Vera wore a simple black dress that hid her secrets. Her hair was pulled into a severe bun. Her makeup was barely there, just enough to look professional. "You can do this," she whispered to her reflection. "A few hours. Stay in the background. Don't make eye contact. It'll be fine." Her hand unconsciously moved to her belly, to the small bump hidden beneath the empire waist. "We'll be fine," she corrected. A knock on her door. "Vera, guests are arriving. We need you downstairs." Rosa's voice. Vera took a deep breath, smoothed down her dress and opened the door. "Ready?" Rosa asked gently. "No, but let's do this anyway." The gala was exactly as Vera remembered. Elegant, sophisticated, filled with Chicago's elite in designer gowns and tuxedos, and masks. Everyone wore elaborate masks, Venetian styles, feathered creations, jeweled masterpieces. The masquerade theme turned the event into something otherworldly, romantic, dangerous. Vera stationed herself near the kitchen entrance, passing out champagne glasses to guests as they arrived. Her own face was bare. Staff didn't wear masks, which somehow made her feel more exposed, not less. "Champagne?" she offered to a couple in matching gold masks. They took glasses without looking at her. Invisible. Perfect. For the first hour, Vera's strategy worked. She moved through the crowd like a ghost, offering drinks, collecting empty glasses, avoiding direct eye contact. And then she saw him. Dominic stood near the orchestra, surrounded by admirers, donors probably, or business associates. He wore a perfectly tailored black tuxedo and a simple black mask that somehow made him look even more dangerous and attractive than usual. He was laughing at something someone said, his whole face transformed by genuine amusement. Vera's heart clenched. This was the man she'd danced with 7 months ago. This version, relaxed, charming, warm, not the controlled, intense CEO she cleaned for every day. As if sensing her gaze, Dominic looked up. Their eyes met across the crowded room. For one terrifying moment, Vera saw recognition flicker in his expression, but then someone claimed his attention, and the moment passed. Vera fled to the kitchen, her heart hammering. "You okay?" Rosa asked, immediately noticing her distress. He looked at me. He really looked at me. And nothing. I don't think he recognized me. "But Rosa, I can't do this. I can't be out there." "Then stay in here. Help me coordinate the catering staff. You don't need to be visible." Vera nodded gratefully. For the next hour, she stayed hidden in the kitchen, managing plates and timing courses and trying to calm her racing heart, until Dominic walked in. "Rosa, we need more champagne in the main room." He stopped when he saw Vera. "Oh, I didn't realize you were back here." "Just helping coordinate, Mr. Russo," Vera said, keeping her eyes down. "Look at me, please." It wasn't a request. Slowly, Vera raised her eyes to meet his. Dominic studied her face with that intense focus that always made her feel transparent. His mask was pushed up on his forehead now, revealing his full expression. Confusion, curiosity, and something else she couldn't identify. "Have we met before?" he asked quietly. "Before you came to work here, I mean. You look familiar." Vera's mouth went dry. "I don't think so, Mr. Russo." "You're certain?" "I have a common face," she managed. "People often think they recognize me." It was a terrible lie. She didn't have a common face. She had the exact face he'd kissed and held and whispered to 7 months ago in a darkened room while the gala continued outside. But he didn't remember. Or did he? "Maybe," Dominic said slowly. "But I'm usually good with faces. And something about you." He trailed off, still studying her. Rosa cleared her throat. "The champagne, Mr. Dominic." "For the main room?" Dominic blinked. The spell breaking. "Right. Yes. Have someone bring out 3 cases." "Of course." He left, but not before giving Vera one last searching look. When he was gone, Vera sagged against the counter. "That was too close," she whispered. "He's starting to remember," Rosa said grimly. "Or at least suspect. Vera, you need to tell him, before he figures it out on his own." I can't. Not yet. Vera, one of the catering staff, rushed in. There's a situation in the main room. Mr. Russo is asking for you specifically. Vera's stomach dropped. Why me? I don't know. He just said to get Vera. Now. She had no choice. Vera followed the staffer back into the main ballroom, her heart pounding with each step. Dominic stood near the center of the room, talking to a distinguished older couple. When he saw Vera, he beckoned her over. Ah, there you are, he said smoothly. Mr. and Mrs. Wellington, this is Vera Mitchell. She's been instrumental in coordinating tonight's event. Vera froze. Mrs. Wellington, elegant, 50-ish, wearing an elaborate peacock-feathered mask, was studying her intently. Mitchell, Mrs. Wellington repeated. Do you have family in Chicago, dear? No, ma'am. I'm new to the city. How interesting. You look remarkably like a young woman I met at last year's gala. Similar coloring, similar features. She was wearing a silver mask, I believe. Made quite an impression on several of our guests. Vera's blood turned to ice. Dominic's expression had gone very still. I wasn't at last year's gala, Vera said, forcing her voice to stay steady. I was living in Ohio at the time. Of course, my mistake. These masks do make everyone look similar, don't they? Mrs. Wellington smiled kindly. You've done wonderful work tonight, dear. The event is lovely. Thank you, ma'am. Vera escaped as quickly as possible, but she could feel Dominic's eyes on her back, burning, questioning, remembering. She made it to the third-floor bathroom before the panic attack hit. Vera locked herself in a stall and tried to breathe through the crushing anxiety. He was going to figure it out. Maybe not tonight, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually Dominic Russo would connect the dots, would remember the woman in the silver mask, would realize his invisible maid and that mysterious stranger were the same person. And when he did, when he discovered she'd been lying to him for months, when he learned about the baby, Vera pressed her hand to her stomach, feeling the small bump beneath the dress. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. I don't know what to do. A knock on the bathroom door made her jump. Vera? It's Rosa. Let me in. Vera unlocked the door with shaking hands. Rosa took one look at her tear-stained face and pulled her into a hug. It's going to be okay, the older woman murmured. Whatever happens, we'll figure it out. He's remembering, Rosa. I could see it in his eyes. And Mrs. Wellington practically identified me. Which means you're out of time. Rosa pulled back, her expression gentle but firm. You need to tell him, Misha. Tonight, before someone else does it for you. I can't. I'm not ready. You'll never be ready. But that baby, Rosa touched Vera's stomach gently, deserves a father who knows they exist. And Mr. Dominic deserves to know he's going to be a father. Vera knew Rosa was right. She'd known it for weeks, maybe months. But knowing something and having the courage to act on it were very different things. What if he hates me? Vera whispered. What if he thinks I trapped him or lied to him? Or, what if he doesn't? Rosa countered. What if he's angry at first, but then steps up? What if he wants to be part of this baby's life? You won't know until you tell him. Vera looked at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, mascara slightly smudged, face pale, eyes terrified. She looked exactly how she felt. Okay, she said quietly. I'll tell him. After the gala, when everyone's gone, I'll tell him everything. Rosa squeezed her hand. You're braver than you think, Bambina. Vera wasn't sure about that. But as she cleaned up her face and prepared to return to the gala, she knew one thing for certain. Her secret was about to explode. And when it did, nothing would ever be the same.